Hello guys, it's Wolfeos here, and happy 4th of July, and this is the July 4th Day video. So we will be playing a mod the new Campaign Trail game has, where you play as John Adams, and you try to convince the colonies to send a Declaration of Independence, which I fit. I love butchering my own sentences. It's my favorite pastime, actually. Try to convince the colonies to ratify the Declaration of Independence. That was what I meant to say. I don't really remember what I said before, but I just know it was not what I intended. But, anyway. I'll try to keep this fairly streamlined. I could talk a lot about, like, what I know about the Revolutionary War, and I will talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to make the video too long, because this is one of the longer, like, mods they have. It's got 40 questions instead of the regular 25. So, yeah, we're going to hop right into it. This is taking place in the summer of 1776. The Continental Congress has been branded traitors by the English crown. They're meeting for a second session in the city of Philadelphia. And Massachusetts. Ah, crap. I used to be able to pronounce that well. I think I even did it a couple times in previous attempts. I don't know why I just started mispronouncing that. Sorry, anyone from Massachusetts. I don't intend to insult your state. But, it's being occupied by the British, who are probably going to be referred to as Redcoats throughout most of this. So John Adams is trying to convince the Congress to adopt resolution. So, yeah. We're playing as John Adams. He was an attorney and politician from Massachusetts. He defended the British soldiers from the Boston Massacre, before this. Yeah. Don't really think there's anything notable, anything else particularly notable or unique about him before then. He is on the Continental Congress, though, so there's that, and he is from Massachusetts. So, yeah. We're doing default winner take all. May 1775, your dream of a glorious English Commonwealth from one end of the Atlantic to the other was dead, cut down by the betrayal of the mother country on her children. Today, Britain lays siege on Boston, intent on making an example of the agitating city. With the colony's request for peace having been ignored, you have been called for the second time to Philadelphia. As you depart Braintree, which I think is in Massachusetts, jeez, I was doing so well on that for a bit of time. How will you spend your final moments at home? The people crave leadership in this time of war. I will address the citizenry at Braintree and make similar sojourns throughout the country on my journey south to Philadelphia. In the time remaining before my departure, I will make a visit to Boston in secrecy to inspire confidence in the brave sons of liberty by whose struggle the whole American country is inspired. Or, while in Philadelphia, I found time for a draper's shop and bought Abigail an outfit I had confidence would charm her. Before my departure, I will present her this fine gift. Okay, so we could address the citizenry at Braintree. However, I think, yeah, Massachusetts is already solidly in our camp, so no real use putting much effort into them. Same thing goes for Boston, and also really don't want to get caught by the British since it might not have been this time since this has taken place a little bit before the summer of 1776. I don't know for sure when they were branded traitors, but I still don't want to sneak into Boston, because that's dangerous. So we're just going to give Abigail the gift. The silk camlet mantua of a pretty blue color becomes Abigail, and she promises to write you with a smile you know will inspire your heart to twist with longing once you are returned to Congress. Lord knows you'll miss her dearly. Alright. Now we switch over to Dr. Center. December of 1775, your name is Isaac Center, a surgeon from the colony of Rhode Island, in the regiment of Colonel Benedict Arnold, before he betrayed America. But the march north has been a trying affair. Lit by a small tin lamp, you retreat to your journal, to which you have hitherto relayed the sacrifices of the journey. In it, what will you now write? So, I'm going to let you guys read this, because I don't feel like burning out my voice, and I would also like to talk about the fact that, the march north they're talking about is whenever America did try a small invasion into Canada during the Revolutionary War. It was early on. I think they came across some Native American villages and, casually committed some war crimes like the Americans had a habit of doing to the Native Americans. But we don't want to talk about that too long. So we'll focus instead on how we decided to attack Canada in the middle of December and failed spectacularly when we got hit by a blizzard, I think. So, this only shows good things for Dr. Center. But we're not going to talk about all the failures because we actually want to convince people to vote for independence, which means they need to support the Revolutionary War, which is in full swing by this point. So rather than talking about, the Native Americans here, ignore this, good old American bias. I think we're getting better about it. So we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about someone losing their leg. And I don't even really know why. Something about a cannonade. I didn't really read that too closely. I still don't think that's a very good option. I think this one's the better one of running across cattle and, actually getting to eat and everyone being happy. So, the cattle in Haifa was slain and divided accordingly, with each man restricted to an X pound of beef. Later, 2 Canadians in canoes arrived, laden with a coarse kind of meal, mutton, tobacco, and I don't really know what that C is supposed to be. Each man drew likewise a pint of this provender. Okay. The waning Continental Army prepares for its assault on Quebec City. You notice that General Montgomery was extremely anxious prior to his charge. No sooner had he crossed that bloody plain, he gave the signal for the attack. While fireballs rain down on where the British suppose your army makes its headquarters, you find yourself racked by duty. What course will you take as this great crucible progresses? So we can stay as a surgeon, we can lead one of the companies attacking the city, or we can just abandon our post. That is, not very pro-war, so I don't think that would be the best option. I don't think we should charge into combat, considering we are a surgeon. Colonel Benedict Arnold has already said not to go into battle, so be listening to the higher officers. Not to mention, I think this attack actually got repulsed with fairly heavy losses, so I don't want to get this guy killed. So we're just going to stay on by post as a surgeon. You stay loyal to the colonel's order, notwithstanding your desire to fight. Later, the colonel was brought in, supported by 2 soldiers wounded in the leg. You easily discover the bullet and extract it, and later aid in the Colonel and Major Ogden's hidden retread from the city. Okay. For a half a year, the Continental Army under the command of General Washington has struggled with countless flaws in design and execution. The result of your correspondence with the man has been an infuriating affair. The General makes clear that if the army is to succeed, especially after the failure of the invasion of Quebec, the Congress must act to improve its condition. What course will you advocate as Washington's strongest ally in the chamber? We could try to raise funding with this one. Could try to bolster equipment. I know the Continental Army did run out of bullets at one of the first major battles of the Revolutionary War, which was Bunker Hill. Albeit that could have just been because Britain sent 3 waves of troops at, the fortifications, so that does tend to deplete ammo, but still, there was a lack of bullets, I believe. I don't really know how good or to rephrase that, because I lost my train of thought, I don't know how well supplied the Continental Army was early on. I know that, it was primary militias like this one is calling about, so we could call for more recruits. I don't particularly think that's going to do much, just calling for more people to the Congress. I don't think that's really going to make a very big impact, so that one's probably not the best. Honestly, I think funding might be the best because you could buy equipment with it, and then also desertion was a big problem in the Continental Army originally. I think primarily during, 1776. So, I mean, not the winter. It was either the winter of 1777 or 1776. There was one really bad winter. Could even be 1778. I just know there was one really bad winter in the Revolutionary War where a lot of people deserted. So actually, being able to pay people would also help those issues. So I think funding's the best course of action to go. It's a fair point, and one that brings shame upon this Congress. Okay. Late in March, word arrives in Philadelphia that the Redcoats have broken their cannons and fled Boston. The chaos of war remains unsteady, however, as British ships sail down the coastline, shelling seaside towns as they go. Doesn't seem like war crimes at all, but from one warship, the Royal Governor of Virginia, the Lord Dunmore, has issued a most stirring proclamation that any enslaved man who takes up arms against America will be afforded their freedom. How does your faction react? So yes, that was something Britain actually did promise. I think America ended up promising the same thing. Neither side really kept their promise. I mean, Britain couldn't after losing the colonies, but America doesn't really have an excuse. But yes, they did promise freedom for any slave who fought for each side. This is a savage order of war designed to incite rebellion in our states, most crucially the southern variety. I and my allies denounce it in the strongest terms. We have to be very delicate with this issue to avoid any undue scandal with our friends from Virginia and the other southern states. Or, if emancipation of slaves should come, it should never be by royal decree from a disgraced tyrant, but by the consenting governments of our independent states. So I don't think this issue was quite as controversial early on as it became later in the 1800s. So I'm not too particularly worried about this destroying the cause. Though I will say that, yes, slavery was bigger in the South, so we might not want to agitate the issue. And emancipation might not have been a very popular position, because abolitionism hadn't really gained momentum yet. It gained momentum later in the 1800s, which is a trend with all things slavery. So we might just want to say this is a savage order of war designed to incite rebellion. And denounce it. That might help us with Virginia. Maybe Maryland. No, not Maryland. But Virginia, we could use the backing. They're one of our weaker independent states. And North Carolina, I think we could make a play for. Because right now we're actually ahead. We might be okay. Yeah, I think we can just denounce it. If you intend to cement the support of the Virginians, this is the most advised action. At this rate, Massachusetts and Virginia will prove an alliance for all history. And yeah, that was sort of true. They were both the most political states at the time. Sorry. That is... Talking is apparently wearing out my throat. Sorry about that. 47-page pamphlet from an anonymous emigre, which its author offers dismissively as nothing more than a simple facts, common sense, okay, so it's Thomas Paine, would begin to circulate, decrying monarchy as a divine malediction, and George III as the royal brute of Britain perceived the fugitive. It continues, in preparing time an asylum for mankind. It closes with a dream, the free and independent states of America. The pamphlet has already sold hundreds of copies and is on track to be printed 1,000 times over. What are your thoughts? What are the thoughts of your patriots? So the pamphlet's secret author, Thomas Paine, is more adept at pulling down than building. There will be a time for Paines and a time for architects. For now, we will let this most enlightening pamphlet speak for itself. We could say, the common nonsense. This common nonsense is nothing greater than a distraction or profligate and impious design, and adopting it would only rile the Tories, whose votes we must inevitably rely on. No, our cause will leave this be. Or, common sense is exactly right, exactly right. It's been suggested by some that I had written this wondrous document, but alas, I could never produce something with as manly and striking a style. People are not correct in their impatience for revolution, but we, their representatives, must lead the way in Philadelphia on this most noble path. So we want to try and make a move on A, securing Virginia, B, securing New Jersey. So they're beginning to doubt the crown other than in New York, Pennsylvania. Yeah, those are the only two states that are actively loyal. Oh, and North Carolina and South Carolina. So if we want to make a play for any of these, we need to be a bit more moderate on our stance towards Britain. So we're not going to go full in support, but we also don't want to disavow it because it is an independence pamphlet. So we're going to, just let it speak for itself. Excellent. There's no need to break in the shop with Payne's common sense just yet. The sorts of ideas enumerated by Mr. Payne are still germinating in the American consciousness. And then also, I know this is something, I don't really know what to do with it, but it might have more info later. Alright. On May Day this year, Philadelphians will vote either to elect an independence ticket to the colony's assembly or maintain the status quo. In preparation for the coming contest, the Society's elders, local religious leaders of the prominent Quaker faith, issue the following statement. Putting down kings and governments is God's peculiar prerogative. Having scorned independence, how will your faction court the Quaker bloc? These voters' Quaker sensibilities do their country a great disservice. If they will not fight for their liberties, so be it. Sam knows Philadelphia and the city's wretched politics better than most. I trust he can settle this unfortunate disagreement. Or perhaps Dr. Franklin could be of help reversing the course of the Quakers' present unhappiness. So, I do know a bit about the Quakers. I know they don't particularly... I don't know much about the Quakers, like, beliefs. I do know they were some of the first supporters of abolition, and I don't ever think they were particularly violent. I think they're actually rather pacifist. But I could be wrong, so if you're a Quaker, feel free to correct me in the comments section. But, we don't want to just, ignore it. But I don't really know which one of these is better. I think he's referring to Samuel Adams. Samuel Adams seems to just be a bigger figure. Unless that's speaking of Benjamin Franklin. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Sam. Your cousin Samuel isn't well liked by the Quakers for a plethora of reasons. From his temperament to his proclivity for violence. Needless to say, he fails at this peculiar task you've afforded to. Okay, that was stupid on my end. I forgot he was very, very, very prominent in voting for independence. That was my bad. Alright, as has been enumerated, the coming General Assembly elections here in Philadelphia will be a crucial test of the electoral effectiveness of your independence movement, and has caught the immense interest of your cousin Samuel. In the broadest terms, what is your strategy for maximizing the independent vote share? Thoughts of home burden my mind, alas, imagination. We require Sam to arouse our supporters to demonstrate for independence, as he did so well in Massachusetts. What losses we suffer with the general populace will make up for with the Dutch immigrant vote. I really don't think that's a big enough group to change the Pennsylvania elections. We must make constant and vigorous reminders to the people of Philadelphia to the full extent of British crimes against the colonies. We shall make fully evident the alarms of war. Or, as troubling as it is to admit, the way to victory in Pennsylvania is through the conservative elements and the Quakers. We must keep trying and moderate if that is what is required. I think it's either that one or having Sam have our supporters demonstrate. It seemed to work well in Massachusetts. However, yeah, I really don't think we've got enough support there for that to make a difference. We're going to have to try and win over the Quakers and conservative elements, even though we kind of butchered the first one. An interesting play, and one your Sam is none too pleased with. Still, you managed to peel away some of the moderate vote. Okay, that doesn't really change much. With the May Day elections to the General Assembly mere days away, Philadelphia is abuzz with word that a large grouping of British men of war have been spotted sailing up the Delaware. What purpose can they have, voters fear, but the destruction of Congress and the stamping out of independence? I would encourage the fine people of Philadelphia not to be intimidated by this British display of bluster. I do wonder whether or not such a display could be the British signaling that they believe this coming election is important to whether or not the tide of liberty shall ever be quelled. If it is, I can't help but agree, which is why I encourage all patriots to vote for the independence ticket. Or, It is of the utmost importance that the Congress be empowered with the means to defend itself, which is why the voters of this province must elect the independence ticket and end the obstruction of the moderates. I don't think playing up the defense of it would be big. Primarily because I don't think Pennsylvania is actually in any danger, considering, it's... Well, no. Hold on. Yeah, the Delaware River might reach it. I can't really see the Delaware River on this map. But yeah, they might actually be under threat. I'm not going to say this one, because that's relying on Patriot support, which I simply don't think exists. We also don't want to throw off the moderates. We might just want to encourage the people. It's a fine thought, but your words are unlikely to quell the paranoia of the Tories. After all, the people here remember the martyrdom of Boston at the hands of the British and do not wish for the same to be enacted on Philadelphia. It is the May Day elections in Philadelphia, and Samuel tells you that during the vote there was a fracas inspired by the Dutch, wherein they chased a Tory named Joseph Swift from the polls. Such a disturbance, he assures you, could dissuade other voters of that side from arriving. However, the events turn sour when the Philadelphia sheriff, a noted Tory, decides to shut the State House door at 6 p.m., with voters still arriving. These coming voters are workers and have no hope of voting anytime but now. What shall be done? Any further disturbance we cause could deteriorate the credence of our movement. So, as much as I despise to admit, we must concede this battle, or... Sam, we can't let these voters go home without casting their ballot in this contest. Have your Sons of Liberty do what they must to ensure their vote is counted. Whatever they must. So I don't particularly think it's morally right to promote violence. However, this is like our one shot to actually win Pennsylvania. So I'm going to actually have him use the Sons of Liberty to do whatever they are going to do to get the vote counted. At the behest of the Sons, the workers refuse to disperse and harangue the sheriff until he is forced to open the doors again and let each man vote. The independence voters will sleep tonight, determined that a new day in America will arrive in the morn. That didn't do anything. Okay, Samuel Adams. You are Samuel Adams, and despite all your hopes, the independence ticket has failed yet in yesterday's elections. In a series of secret meetings that will be scarcely recorded, you meet with your allies in Philadelphia to accumulate theories as to why you were defeated and deliberate on the future. What is the way forward? Okay. We must overthrow the government of Pennsylvania. Dr. Young and I are in accord on this matter. A revolution of the worker, the farmer, and the immigrant must take place. Okay, that's oddly communist for this time period, but it honestly might be our only hope to get it. To get Pennsylvania, at least. Or the old dream of democratic government in America cannot be forestalled, in part due to one unfortunate result. We can, however, put the squeeze on this new government. Independence voices from Pennsylvania must be heard in the Congress. We cannot allow Mr. Dickinson's obstructions and facilitations to continue. That one's a fine sentiment, but I really want Pennsylvania, so we're going to try and overthrow it. A bold plan and far more radical than any of the measures the Sons took in Massachusetts. A total societal upheaval, if that is what is necessary for liberty. I don't know what that did. Disaster for the coalition. News has arrived in Philadelphia. An act of parliament has been enacted that would establish a Royal Peace Commission made up of commissioners with the task of negotiating an end to the hostilities with Congress at the present. Why would Congress declare independence, the reconciliationists ask, and turn a just war of defense into a wanton war by choice? The king is the author of all our miseries, offers peace with one hand, and cuts us down with another. This Congress will accept no peace without independence. This peace commission is not but a phantom. This prohibitory act that you celebrate also authorizes piracy against American ships. If we are made independent, it will be by these cruel acts of Parliament. Or our greatest fears have come to fruition with this act. We would do well not to appear desperate in the face of this dire political condition. This too shall pass. So I'm not really gonna have any real worries about this because, oh frick. Oh yeah, there was an olive branch petition that the Congress sent to the king before, and it didn't work. So I'm not particularly I don't think this one would work either. So we might just be able to let it blow over. I don't know if we want to attack the Peace Commission. And I don't really know if we want to go on the attack. So, yeah, this too shall pass. Even your most loyal partners in the Congress fear this could mark a nail in the coffin for independence. Let us hope, for the sake of liberty, that Britain's breathless pronouncement is as much a phantom as Sam suspects. Okay, so 3 days after the reconciliationist elation at the news of the Royal Peace Commission's formation, their celebrations died out in an instant. Further news has arrived in Philadelphia that the king has hired thousands of foreign mercenaries from various German principalities, especially from Hesse, which is why these mercenaries are called Hessians, or they were called Hessians, is because they were from that area. But they were called to put down the revolution. Also, they were known to be particularly brutal. Have you and your cousin's fears been validated? Could our king have so little feeling for us, have turned his back so utterly that he could consider subjugating us to the violation of foreign invasion? That consideration inspires great sorrow in the heart of any Englishman. A king who calls a horde of Germans on his own subjects is no king of ours. Independence is no longer the act of choiceable severance, but to declare a fact a thing that is. Or, indeed they have. Is this the king whose tender mercy you have spoken of, Mr. Dickinson? I like the sarcasm of that one. However, I think we might want to play this up by, emphasizing that the king doesn't really care. Such dignified language will speak to the sore hearts of the reconciliationists, but inspires raised eyebrows in most of your allies in the Congress. Okay, well, I don't think my allies are going to betray me for that. We still have most of the vote, I think. Okay. The instruction procedure mandates that all congressmen follow the instructions of their state governments on important measures such as independence, and has henceforth served as a roadblock to your faction. You have long considered the removal of the mandate, but thought it a measure too radical until now. You introduced to Congress which of the following resolves. Resolved that it be recommended to the respective assemblies and conventions, where no government sufficient to the exigencies of these affairs have hitherto been established, to adopt such governments as shall, in the opinion of the representatives of the people, best conduce to the happiness and safety of their constituents in particular, and America in general. Or that the Congress is granted full powers to concert, direct, and order such further measures as may seem necessary for defense and preservation, support, and establishment of right and liberty in these colonies. Okay, so this one, I think, disbands that mandate. This one just says they should adopt it. Currently, I don't think we've got enough support to just completely remove it. So we're gonna pass this one. You and James Duan of New York spar over this altogether more moderate resolve. No matter the reach, the implications of this measure are still radical. You're prepared for another debate with Dickinson, this time with independence itself on the line. Okay. Or not. To the surprise of you and Sam, Dickinson has relented on the instruction issue. It takes a moment for you to understand what he's playing at, but Sam eventually deciphers his motives. He intends to present the proclamation to the fracturing citizenry of Pennsylvania as evidence that the Congress recognizes the state's government as a functioning model for other colonies. Okay, try to combine cunning with colonies and got Connollies? I don't even know how I pronounced that the first time. Oh, jeez. It's your play now. John, what's your move? Okay, the whole question is staked on the contents of the resolved's preamble. I will propose a conciliatory declaration laying out in full the motives for and justifications of the revocation of the instruction procedure. I will propose a radical declaration decrying His Britannic Majesty for his hostile invasions and cruel depredations. Or the preamble itself is not important. Dickinson has pulled the rug from under us, and we would do well to assure our alliance that this measure of revocation is still the most perfect outcome. I'll be honest, I'm a bit lost here. I don't entirely understand what's happening. I'm not sure we want to go full in on independence. I think we might just want to lay out the motives. Okay, this is exactly what Dickinson was hoping you would do, and it lends further credence to his argument. If your intention was to bolster the legitimacy of his Pennsylvania government, good job. Okay, well, crap. That wasn't what we wanted to do. Ew, and we're losing New Jersey. Oh, boy, how do we get that? Okay. Duane's protestations over the preamble opened the floodgates for other reconciliationists who argue in varying degrees and for various reasons opposing the measure. James Wilson of Pennsylvania points out in his quiet, measured way, before we build a new house, why should we pull down the old one and expose ourselves to the inclemencies of the seasons? You've heard the season's preamble 12 times from Mr. Wilson, and its reputation wears on you. How will you respond? There's no requirement to respond. If Mr. Wilson continues to provide us the same story, he could very well put this body to sleep, or I will give a lengthy defense of the preamble and the reasons it is a necessary act against the cruel actions of the king. Its legitimacy to this body and reasons are to be undeniable. I don't want to just stay silent, and as funny as just saying he's going to put me to sleep is, which I mean could be a solid defense, but considering New Jersey and some other states are beginning to doubt, I want to give him a long response. You repeat the same points of the preamble with its expectant supporters and detractors. When the vote comes late in the afternoon, the resolvent preamble passed 7-5. Duane asserts that you have created a machine for the fabrication of independence. You pause before responding with confidence that this measure is independence. Okay. Still didn't back up New Jersey, unfortunately. The time for action approaches, Sam. Tomorrow the Philadelphia City Committee will convene to hear your party's petition against the General Assembly. Winning their support will be crucial in this matter. How will you mobilize people to your side? The people will flock to the coffee houses tonight. They're really organized, and where we may control the conversation and muster signatures for a petition. We need to sway the people and fast. Is Thomas Paine still in town? We can muster his talents for the prevailing of our petition, if he would lend them to us. The Committee of Privates is our most sure bet for mobilizing support for independence outside of Philadelphia. Ride to each town within distance, young men, and return with a great army of liberty tomorrow morning. Or it's Congress Sunday and Philadelphians flock to their places of worship. We'll work with James Cannon and have the Suns ride from church to church through the morning. God willing, we can consolidate the non-Quaker godly vote for independence. Okay, so it's somewhat urban. I think the coffee houses is too small scale, maybe. We could try the Committee of Privates, though I'm not sure that would be a good way either. Thomas Paine, I don't trust it act fast enough, so we could try to muster the churches. However, I think Quakers made up the majority, so that might not actually... I don't really know. I'm not very good with Pennsylvania, so... They're strongly opposed to independence. The Continental Army has a weak presence. They're still loyal to the crown. The market is somewhat urban, and the principles are somewhat Yankee. I do remember, I think it was the 1796 election where it says Thomas Paine had a way with Pennsylvania that he might honestly be our best bet. Because I don't think any of the other 3 options work. Inspired by the struggle to sway Pennsylvania, Paine pens The Alarm, or Der Alarm as it is reprinted in German, decrying the assembly for its royal connection and reiterating the reasons why it's incompatible with Lee's resolution for independence. Oh, the next day the city committee agrees to your mob's demands. Oh, sweet. Okay. It's pouring wind. At your order, the crowd of 4,000 assembles within the brick-walled yard behind the State House. John Robideu, a Philadelphia manufacturer with a booming voice, begins with a reading of the preamble of the May 10th Adams-Lee Resolve. Afterward, the crowd deliberates, not debilitates, that is a very different meaning, on overturning the government elected on May Day. An old man named John Cadwalader asks for clarification on some menial matter. How will the crowd react? We are on the cusp of greatness. Mr. Cadwalader has made a grave mistake, and we cannot allow him to imperil our proceedings. Get him off the stage. We are on the cusp of greatness. We cannot allow our proceedings to be imperiled by some doddering old man. Shout him down. Or he is a supporter of our cause. Let him make his request. Honestly, considering how well this election seems to be going, actually, I meant to have that sound more sarcastic, but everyone seems to be against independence so far in Pennsylvania, so I don't trust them. We don't want to just get him off the stage, because that will show that we're scared of him. So we're just going to go with some good old mob mentality and shout him down. After suffering a plethora of verbal abuses, the man finally cedes his position, and the proceedings continue. You watch from the second floor where the Continental Congress is gathered as the assemblymen agree to their own dissolution. They will continue working for now until a convention can determine a new constitution. Okay, so I'm sure that was probably morally right. Probably. Definitely not. But over the course of the Congress, the impromptu alliance between yourself and the Lee brothers of Virginia has only grown stronger. At one time you despised John Hancock for his association with slavers. Now your movement is beholden to the sons of tobacco empires who come to Philadelphia, attended by human chattel and dazzling livery. The night following your victory in the courtyard, you and Samuel are having dinner with the Lees, sipping Burgundy and eating well, when the conversation suddenly turns to the alliance itself. Lee mouths something about slavery. What will you say in response? No matter our opinions on the morality of the bondage of Africans in America, slavery is a crucial engine of Southern economy. Any union that forms must respect that. Why discuss this one topic which divides us when there is so much that binds us as one? Or, while we may have differing viewpoints on a variety of issues, I think the morality of this particular discussion is unquestionable. Slavery is a disgrace to God, and in the union we form must denounce it. That one's far too abolitionist for the time, so no. That one, we could go that. I mean, I guess. However, New Jersey does have somewhat pompous principles, which tell me that they might not favor slavery. Not favor slavery. So, coming out in support of it is not a good idea there either. So we're just gonna, ignore it. The choice not to comment on a divisive issue is an odd one for John Adams, but you are in sensitive company after all. Night continues in blissful merriness, tended to by Chattlemen. Okay. Pennsylvania is not the only province being rocked by political upheaval. While your home of Massachusetts has hitherto supported the revolution, President James Warren of the Provisional Massachusetts Congress copes with an insurgent group of West Massachusetts farmers, internally embittered to the Boston elite, whose militia intend on taking control of the Massachusetts government. With the situation tumultuous, what advice do you lend them? Okay. Encourage Warren, chastise Warren, ease Warren, or goad Warren. I I don't think we want to ease Warren. I don't trust this militia, and I don't want to lose Massachusetts, especially when it is as strong as it is. I think we just need to encourage him. Warren is encouraged by your letter, and especially your beliefs regarding the maintenance of order, tradition, and the social hierarchy. He cannot yet free himself of this populistic pestilence that embarrasses you in Philadelphia, but he will work to stabilize the government. Fantastic. Oh hey, we're actually starting to slowly turn Pennsylvania. Okay. North Carolina was the first colony to inquire about your beliefs on the formation of a government in January. Now George Wythe of Virginia applies for your thoughts on the restructuring of a state's government and the priorities any government must uphold. Writing this response will prove an enormous relief from the stresses of Congress. What will you write? Liberal education, firm militia, society bound by order, law, and in a uniting spirit of togetherness. This is the model that has produced the most effective and judicious governments of our history, and the one you must emulate in creating the new government of Virginia. Okay. To me, no romance is more enthralling than that of government. My friend, I encourage you to consider producing your government the voices of all Virginia, and discover a consensus that unites you in this common cause of blessed liberty, or you and I, my dear friend, have been set in new life at a time when the greatest lawmakers of antiquity have wished to live. How few of the human race have had the opportunities to make for themselves elections for the government of themselves and their offspring. Rejoice in the freedom of mankind, and may your new government protect it. That one is too philosophical or something. I don't even know how to describe that one. I think that one's a good one. I think that one's a bit too pure democracy, which I don't think Virginia ended up adapting, so this might actually be the best one. This is just about what you have been saying during the whole of your career in statecraft, and proves a principled influence on the actions of Wythe. Meanwhile, your letters circulate as thoughts on government, too little or of the same fanfare as Paine's pamphlet. Okay. And that boosted our support in Virginia and actually New Jersey as well, I think. So that might be okay. Encouraged by your thoughts on government, Patrick? Why did I try to pronounce Patrick Patrick? That's fine, I'm only butchering the English language because that's who we were against in the Revolutionary War. Definitely 100% intentional. But anyway, Patrick Henry has written to Virginia's Whigs to advocate your positions. Most scandalously in his letter, he has referred to you as a Democrat. That name comes with dangerous implications. Is it true you intend for the unproperty to vote? On the matter of the vote, I can provide no counsel, but to dissuade what has already been misappropriated of my position. I am not a Democrat, as Mr. Henry has said, and I do not support the right of any man to vote. The magnitude of change on this continent is the most magnificent melody of history, that I am convinced of. If the Union has to come is to survive the troubles of politics, it must embrace a model wherein all men may participate in government. That is a question that the peoples of Virginia and other colonies must determine in establishing their new governments. Because, yeah, I think they want all people with property to vote. Okay, and yeah, it's a merchant class. That is kind of a planter class. Okay, but that's going to Virginia, so we don't want to really focus on New Jersey. So we'll just say that it's up to Virginia. You're not one to keep your opinion to yourself on matters, and your allies are wonder whatever you could be meaning. Okay, that isn't good. Since Dickinson's return in Philadelphia, the state's provisional convention looms. Since his return, he has been trying a plethora of solutions to his political woes, yet the government he's curated in Pennsylvania increasingly slips through his fingers. But the cause of independency is not slowed. Richard Henry Lee has just introduced the most important resolve thus far, that these colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. A despondent Dickinson watches as you rise to speak in the motion's favor. What will you say? Second, your move, Dickinson. Or second, it is time to move without pause towards the divine goal of liberty. Pennsylvania is still strongly opposed to independence, so we don't want to back it too strongly, so we'll just say second, your move. You stare down Dickinson for a moment, and that seems to flare up a more determined resolve in the both of you. James Wilson, Dickinson's protege, rushes downstairs to keep watch of the assembly, whilst Dickinson rallies the reconciliationists for their most spirited offensive yet. Okay. Dickinson and his reconciliationist bloc are battered but not intimidated. Despite the maelstrom, they point to the coming conventions about to assemble in Delaware and New Jersey, and to legislative bodies already in session in Pennsylvania and New York. They contend that their instructions to the Congress could change, and the vote must be postponed. Meanwhile, the body's youngest delegate, Edward Rutledge of South Carolina, states his case on a different basis. Independency, he claims, would prevent the Congress from finding foreign allies instead of aiding that endeavor. How do you respond? Our assault and retribution to those who would pry us from independency must be as vigorous as our cause is right. We will mock Rutledge for his naivete on the alliances question and attack the governments of Maryland and Pennsylvania for their facilitations directly. Or, the evening is failing and the debate has not slowed down. We must continue this discussion after the break. No matter how much time it takes, we will win this debate. The success of all generations to come depends on it. Or invasion from the British could come at any minute. We must find support from another sovereign power, or we could be cut down where we stand. Mr. Rutledge could not be more wrong in his assertion. On the contrary, sir, we must accept independency if we hope for any opportunity of relief. I don't really think that one's backing it. We could just mock it, which, that could work. I mean, if I'm seeing one thing, it's that the mob mentality has seemed to work. However, I'm not entirely sure that would answer the question. So yeah, we might want to continue the debate later. No, we don't want to postpone it. We'll just say that, we have to accept it to get alliances. He might have a point, but Rutledge and the other reconciliationists certainly don't think so, excluding Dickinson, who's considering every plausible path to slow down the independence movement. If he get caught on the alliances question, he wins this battle, and the vote for Lee's resolve is postponed to July 1st, but you're gaining ground. Okay. On that matter of alliance, the Congress remains divided. Dr. Franklin has advocated the pursuance of an alliance with France, whilst others have spoken positively of a similar arrangement with the Spanish. Which sovereign power, in your view, would be a most sensible partner for the revolution? While I am busy throwing off the irons of Britain, you would suggest I put on the chains of another power? No, our cause of liberty knows no equal in history, and you will not be deluded by the whims of a foreign power. That is, incredibly stupid. America did rely a lot on our foreign aid during the Revolutionary War. Like, the French Navy basically served as our Navy. They helped a lot. And I think the Spanish even attacked some of the British colonies that were in the western areas. So the Spanish helped a lot too. Not quite as much as the French, but they still assisted. So both sides do end up supporting us. So we're going to seek an alliance with any nation. Because I think Prussia ended up helping as well. This is certainly a more pragmatic idea and shows that you take that issue seriously. But many of your allies and detractors alike would have preferred a more concrete position. That's okay. Okay. Whilst the Continental Congress has busily been debating the Lee resolution, the postponement has freed up your allies to work other means to secure votes. With legislative conventions ongoing in New Jersey and Delaware, your faction could have a significant effect in winning favor in either, but you may only have the muster to effectively influence one of the two, which is of greater priority. Yeah, we're not winning Delaware, where you've got to keep New Jersey. So we're not going to Delaware. New Jersey has been slow to embrace our cause, but they are in a vital position and must be won over. Dispatch our allies to Burlington. With the loyalist governor of New Jersey and Dr. Franklin's bastard son, William Franklin, having already been ousted in June, the colony is ripe for the harvest of liberty. Okay, yeah, that fully made them come into our fold. So we should be good there now. Dickinson's government is on the brink of destruction, but his bloc had held. If the Beast Commissioners Britain promised arrive, America might still escape the chaos. Today, Dickinson has mustered his 5 battalions of the Committee of Privates to the State House and intends to put the question of the present governmental woes of Pennsylvania to his men. A victory here among the soldiers is crucial. How will your side sway them to speak out for independency? Utilizing our influence among the Committee of Privates would be showing our hand too soon. Instruct our man amongst the privates, James Cann, to organize no show of dissent at the muster. Or, our man amongst the privates, James Cannon, must inspire them in the greatest ferocity. In this case, the lowly working man must unfortunately be delegated with the power of Pennsylvania. Or, the way to the men's hearts is through their officers. We must rally the other commanders to join in dissent to Dickinson's power. The hour when Pennsylvania will be liberated from the tumor of reconciliation is soon at hand. Honestly, I think that might actually be the best way to get the most votes, though James Cann does seem to be a valuable trump card. Yeah, I think the officers is the best way to muster it all, because the Continental Army is currently having a weak presence in Pennsylvania, so we're going to try and get the officers. When the question was put to the men by their officers, they responded in great magnitude their support for independency. However, one officer, the old man John Cadwalder, who had stalled the previous assembly, would dissent strongly. Regardless, Dickinson's rule is coming apart at the seams. Okay. Through the Provisional Pennsylvania Convention has made inevitable progress towards recognition of independency in that colony, they've hit an abrupt, painful snag on the divisive topic of religion. Christopher Marshall, a delegate to the convention and a lapsed Quaker fundamentalist, has put forward a motion to require that all office holders of Pennsylvania must make an oath professing faith for God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Now they seek your counsel to get past this difficulty. How can you settle it? Why are you coming to me with these issues? Rest the settlement of your differences and on the wise parliamentary stewardship of your convention's president, Thomas McKean, and settle it amongst yourselves. On the contrary, measures such as the one that has been suggested to you by Mr. Marshall would be adverse to our concept of liberty. The only oath I would suggest is one to the law, not a king nor anybody else. Or, our republic and its constituent parts have been devised only for a moral and religious people. I endorse this oath measure and believe it will be a moralizing influence on the government of the new Pennsylvania. That might make inroads with the Quakers. I am worried about forcing a religion. However, I do think the Quakers had a good presence there, and they've got somewhat Yankee beliefs. I think we might be able to... I think we could push that motion to make inroads. I'm not sure if it's a good idea. And we don't want to just, like, decry it. However, yeah, I really don't know if that's worth it. I'm just gonna say settle it amongst yourselves. I really don't think there's any way this could go well for us. Best to leave this business to the convention. It too will pass, and God willing, Pennsylvania will proceed to independency. Okay. While Philadelphia moves swiftly towards independence, it is crucial that all 13 colonies move toward this goal in unison. No defections can be endured. That is why the news you have just received indicating Maryland has yet to free up their delegates to support independency is so troubling. What can you do to convince Maryland? Change must be inaugurated first by those in great esteem and power. I will write to Governor Eden enumerating the reasons why he ought to acquiesce to his people who demand independency. We cannot allow Maryland to slip through our fingers at this most crucial hour, though it might be conceived as an extreme solution to our present malady. I fear we have no choice but to request that Mr. Payne write for the Marylanders a summary of our position. I will write to the Patriots of Maryland and encourage them to move swiftly toward the formation of a new government. Maryland must come into the fold if we are to achieve independency, or I will entrust Sam to conclude this business with Maryland whilst I press on with mine in the committee. Honestly, Samuel Adams seemed to be a pretty good choice for getting, like, governments to be toppled. I don't want to move to Thomas Paine because I really don't think he had the way with I meant Maryland. I don't think he had the way with Maryland as well as he did Pennsylvania. I'm worried that right into the governor wouldn't yield the results. However, that would be the biggest figure we could get on our side there. And I don't trust the Patriots to get that government formed quick. I'm going to send Sam. I think that's the most concrete way to fix it without just trusting the governor. Cunning. He never had a knack for riling the people, but Sam always did. From the shouts, he orchestrates a coup of brilliant intricacy, and Governor Eden is overthrown. You can count on Maryland. That is kind of shocking how well that went, even though it hasn't fully turned independent yet. If America is to break off from Great Britain as your faction intends, the Congress must draft a proclamation of reasons as to why it has done so. You have been I can't pronounce that word. You have been busy with your working committee seeing the Lee resolution through, and the other man most favored, Dr. Franklin, is suffering from exhaustion and gout, which is arthritis in modern day terms. Or I think it's a type of arthritis. I could be wrong there, but from what I've researched, it sounds like a form of arthritis. If you are not to pen this declaration, who? Yeah, that's just going to be Thomas Jefferson. He wrote it historically, so yeah, he's going to be the one. John Hancock greenlights Jefferson's appointment and yours, and Dr. Franklin's as editors, and Dickinson relents too. My ability to speak English is getting worse as I think we move towards independence from England. I mean, fitting, but don't really have a secondary language. Okay, yeah, he's drafting. Oh hey, now we have Jefferson as a running mate, apparently. Yeah, no, and there's nothing here. Danger preempts hope. Rumors persist throughout the colonies that British ships amass on the eastern shores in preparation for an invasion. Oh, gosh. My throat is getting so scratchy. It's very annoying. But agents of the crown apparently lurk among our own. In Philadelphia, where the Tories are especially prevalent, the paranoia persists in worse intensity. How will your faction react to these fears? The reputation of our Continental Army... Why am I butchering this? Why can I not speak English? My gosh. If I knew how to speak Spanish, I'd just switch to that and hope that'd somehow go better. The reputation of our Continental Army has surely and unfortunately been damaged by the failed invasion. All the peoples of every colony must rise up in their own arms when the British invasion comes. It's time to begin preparations for this invasion to come. This we cannot do as long as the obstructions and haranguing of Mr. Dickinson and his ilk continues, or any potential incursions into our country by the Crown must be met with overwhelming resistance by George Washington's army, and we maintain our trust in him absolutely. Sorry about that. I think we need to begin preparations. I don't want to leave it entrusted to George Washington. I think he was a good president, but as a general, he was willing to listen to people who had good ideas. It was one of his key strengths, but he also wasn't exactly the best tactician on his own. And there's, in particular, the Battle of Brooklyn Heights, which I'm thinking about currently. And I think it's the Battle of Brooklyn Heights where he got, like, defeated, like, numerous times in a row and almost lost an entire state because of it. So, we're either going to try and begin preparation, we're going to try and muster up some forces, which I think would actually have more of an effect. I don't think any preparations could stop the British. It is, as George Mason of Virginia will say, to disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. General Washington has disappointed that your voice of support has gone silent. I mean, okay, but that isn't really a big deal. Debate about the Lee resolve and its impending vote grows tiring. Neither side has budged an inch. Jeez. Dickinson is deathly determined to prevent independence and rises to speak in his most stirring and wild speech yet. In it, he warns that independence will invite foreign invasion and a civil war between ourselves. He ends by prophesying in a shaking yet determined voice that after all this turmoil, we will crawl back to the king, but he will recognize us as slaves, a conquered people. Which of those notions will you attack in your rebuttal? We're not going to attack the Civil War one. That one does come true. Look at how you writhe in your time of defeat, Dickinson. Rather than address his points, I will simply reiterate what I have been saying about independency all along and why I know it is right. Mr. Dickinson's warning that our troubles will return us to the king is not a warning at all, but rather a distinct fantasy of his. Blood has already been spilled by the mother's country, sir, and you would return us to her. What absurd folly that would be. Or, I attack the idea that independence would invite foreign invasion. On the contrary, independence is the only way to ensure that this country can establish lucrative bonds and alliances with the other powers of the world. Or, concept of a civil war between the colonies is paranoia of the highest order. Yeah, that isn't true. I don't want to just say that returning to the king would be bad because of Pennsylvania not yet coming around to independence. I think, honestly, the best idea is to attack the idea that it would invite foreign invasion. It would have been preferably to let Dickinson's fear-mongering stand on their own, addressing the issue as bolstered and Rutledge and Dewan rave about the issue in the coming hours until the time of the vote arrives. That isn't good. Independence, confederation, and foreign alliances. For the previous year, such talk was scorned by the majority of the Congress. Today, it looks as though the Lee resolve will pass the committee of the whole, essentially endorsing all three concepts. However, the vote clearly will not be unanimous. What will your chosen course be to ensure the floor vote is? On the floor, I will give a speech for independence personally, as Demosthenes, I think that's something Greek, did against Alexander. We must put the squeeze on Dickinson and his ilk. They must not be invited to impede us. We must display confidence while on the floor and work diligently to otherwise dissuade the holdouts. Or we must focus our rhetoric on the prospect of confederation. Only together can we repel the British and forge for future generations an Eden of liberty. That one's a bit too pro-independency. Honestly, trying to keep Dickinson and his out might be the best course of action. Though John Adams is a very good orator, I believe. So we might want to try that. So we're going to try and give a speech. And he died for his Demosthenes died for his defiant leadership. As for you, your greatness may be inarguable, but the people of this Congress here and now think less as much and find your voice irritating. Well, that isn't good. Probably should have just tried to keep Dickinson out. The first draft of Jefferson's proclamation is complete. You and Dr. Franklin are the first of the committee granted the responsibility of the revision. It's a task Dr. Franklin will find most appealing, nitpicking what is to be Mr. Jefferson's most crucial work. You, however, have a strong level of trust in Jefferson's pen and concern yourself strongly with the integrity of his document. But the draft you read is incredible. However, the justifications it lists as a reason for independency are not, as I see them, sufficient. Such manly language as this document uses could debase it in the eyes of Mr. Dickinson and the moderates. We must alter that. Incredible, I will defend its every word. Incredible, however, the justifications it lists as reasons for independence are not, as I see them, sufficient. A more pointed summary of the abuses suffered by Massachusetts at the hands of the British would lend the document credibility. We could try and make inroads with the moderates. Okay. Though, I don't think we're going to win over Mr. Dickinson, so we might just want to... We might just try and get a more pointed summary of the abuses. Jefferson groans and shifts uncomfortably for every pen stroke you make. By the end, you have added a detailed record of British abuses on Massachusetts. For centuries, historians will wonder whether this proclamation is more Jefferson's or yours. Okay, that wasn't ideal. More broadly, Dr. Franklin has taken issue with the lack of, I don't know how to pronounce that, and the repetition of much of Jefferson's words. Sacred and undeniable in the first line of the preamble come to mind, and Franklin suggests self-evident as a replacement. Jefferson argues his point, saying every word was carefully selected. I think diversity lends the proclamation further gravity. Wait, actually. Wait, yeah, self-evident is better. We don't want to go against Dr. Franklin, especially considering how key self-evident becomes in the Declaration of Independence. A more concise document would be preferable. Jefferson watches in quiet disgust as you and Dr. Franklin take out all of the proclamation's most flowery language. One word, even hyphenated, is better than three. Okay. Sorry, Jefferson, I think we might have accidentally made your Declaration of Independence ours. One of the more scandalous charges levied against the king in this document is that he has waged cruel war against human nature itself by the transportation of persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery. Such a declaration would be deafening and puts the alliance at grave risk of fracture. Dr. Franklin strongly prefers the entire paragraph be removed. Is he right? Yes, the doctor is. We cannot risk offending Mr. Lee or his friends. This portion must be taken out. No, the doctor is not. The slave trade is a viscous evil, and any free union of states that is to come must revoke it. Or, I understand it, Mr. Jefferson. Is it your intention to cease the importation of new slaves in order so those already in bondage here, like the ones at your place, would be a more lucrative commodity? I do know the slave trade, I think, got banned early on. They kept trading slaves within the states, but I think they quit importing them around the time of the, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson election. At least according to that election game. I very well could be wrong on that, so please do your own research on that. And don't just take my word for it. But I don't believe the slave trade was all that popular anymore by this point. However, I don't want to risk offending the southern states, especially when they're some of our more concrete supporters. So we're going to say, yes, we cannot risk offending Mr. Lee or his friends. This portion must be taken out. Jefferson is uneasy at the removal of the condemnation of the Atlantic slave trade, but this is certainly the more pragmatic outcome. Okay. The proclamation Mr. Jefferson has written endorses much of the Enlightenment's philosophical foundings about the right of man in government, for better or worse. One line, however, sticks out as potentially hazardous. What does all men are created equal mean? Yeah, that doesn't become an issue later at all. It is the recognition that the peoples of these colonies harbor the same right as any other people to exist and proclaim themselves a sovereign nation. It is the acknowledgement of the divine right of all mankind to be free and independent persons, as God has intended us to be. Or it is a biting condemnation of the evil inherent in the institution of slavery. Those two are both too anti-slavery for the time. And I don't want to offend the southern states, especially whenever we're actually coming fairly close to winning North Carolina. At least compared to some of the others. So, we're just going to say, we have the same right to declare ourselves a sovereign state. This explanation will ease the worries of the slaver class, but the generations to come will evolve in their understanding of this particular pronouncement. Excellent, I'm sure that will lead to no potential civil wars in the future. Alright, upon getting the chance to read the proclamation's present rendition, Benjamin Harrison V of Virginia has had his way with suggesting alterations, but otherwise awaits the time to present it to the Congress. On that note, are there any other last-second edits you'd like to advocate, or is this document sufficient? I will let Franklin and Harrison look it over independently another time. In the meanwhile, I will seek out Jefferson and host him at lunchtime. Preferably, I may ease his fears about our intentions. The Declaration of Independence is sufficient, or the line of the preamble, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, is a strange perversion of the old revolutionary slogan, life, liberty, and property. Such an obvious reinterpretation could inspire concern that the Congress intends on the upturning of the upper class. That one's not based on. Well, yeah. Historically, it is based on something. I do think there was an old slogan saying life, liberty, and property. But as for the fears, I don't think there's any real worry there. So I think we can, leave the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness phrase on. It's what is in the actual declaration. So it's fine there. I think the declaration is sufficient. I would like Franklin and Harrison to look over it independently, so we'll just seek out Jefferson and host him at lunchtime. During your lunch, you and Jefferson debate the intricacies of government and nature. Though you two differ on just about everything, you have found common understanding and good-intentioned patriotism. In Philadelphia, you craft a friendship with Jefferson that could prove timeless. Dickinson is pale as death as the vote for independence looms. The choice is clear. Whether this body will take that momentous step forward or die separated. The delegation of the state of South Carolina, however, continues to dissent. How will you convince its stubborn leader, the young Edward Rutledge, to take that step with you? This is the most important moment of our lives and our prosperity. Britain has levied on us countless abuses. They laid siege to your Charleston at this very moment. If we are to triumph against this force of evil, we must do so together. Please, sir, for the liberty of all our people, do not obstruct us. Rutledge must be concerned about our commitment not to interfere with the institution of slavery. The cotton trade benefits New England just as much as it does South Carolina. We will never intend offense upon it. Edward Rutledge was determined from the date of his birth to say no, and will undoubtedly go to the grave with a pleased consciousness he has voted against everything. Focus our efforts on the other colonies, or I will request that he join our cause for the sake of unity. I really would like to win over South Carolina. I don't know if we could. But I really don't think I could convince him, because he's been one of our most prominent detractors. I think we need to focus on the other states. Focus our efforts on the other colonies. Perhaps you're right, but Rutledge likely could have been swayed. You will not carry South Carolina in the vote. Okay, well that's a bummer, but I didn't want to risk failing. The poor outside is intermixed with the echoing thunder of history. The time of revolution is at hand, and everything that has come before has been naught but the prelude of what promises to be a great chapter. Independence has won the committee poll, but the vote was not unanimous. The colonies must be united if they are to be free. The dream of a republic bound in philosophies of liberty and common cause rests on your shoulders. The magnitude of it all is palpable. What's your last move as the hour of independency draws near? Though Sam has upturned Pennsylvania, their vote is not assured. I must seek out James Wilson. Pennsylvania must vote in favor. I think Dwan is New York. I don't think we've got a chance of winning New York. We just haven't gotten to do anything with it. I must seek out Dwan if we are to achieve I cannot pronounce this. Insert way too repeated joke about me not being able to speak English well. So that one's not good. The hopes of reconciliation, once fondly entertained, has finally been distinguished. Time has been given for the whole people maturely to consider the great question of independence and ripen their judgments, dissipate their fears, and allure their hopes. The whole people in every colony of the 13 have adopted this. as their own act to cement our union as our liberty as Americans is ordained by God. We could do that one to try and make a play for Delaware, but I'm not sure we're going to get it. I don't know if... I want to try and get Pennsylvania. I don't know if this will just completely shift it, but it's worth a shot. You encourage James Wilson to follow his judgment and do what is right. He listens intently and nods along with every word. You can only pray he delivers come the vote. Now the drum of history beckons you in the increasing volume. Hour of independence is at hand. Election night has arrived. Settle in and wait for the returns, however long it takes. Best of luck. So we need 1 to win. That doesn't sound right. I think it's just however many win the most. Oh wait, there was an abstain option? That's funny. I did not know that. Congratulations. You won this year's election. Huh? Click OK. Okay. I guess you literally only needed 1 state to vote for independence? That doesn't seem right. Oh, okay. Pennsylvania did not get delivered. Though we did sort of close the gap. Oh, we could have tried for South Carolina, though. I'm kind of kicking myself for not, but... no, well. Yeah. It was 6-7. Oh, this is no triumph. John Adams frowned as the results of the votes were announced, one after the other. Independence had won, but without any notable result. The Congress had failed, and independence weakened badly. The following blood of the new republic gushed out after being slashed where it stood in the Battle of Philadelphia. Oh. The divisions were too great, the colonies' ambitions too conflicting. If only Mr. Adams had succeeded in unifying the colonies. Alas, imagination. The war for freedom was long before finally concluding with that terrible battle in 1784. Abigail and Adams' children fled south. John Adams, Jefferson, and Dr. Franklin were hanged. With them, the dream of independence died too. Okay, I guess we didn't achieve enough vote to actually rally everything. So we got independence, just not enough unity. So that's kind of the bad ending, but I don't even really think we can call that a triumph. So we might try it later for next year's July 4th. But I hope you guys all have a good 4th of July. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. If you didn't, comment down below what I can do better. And I will see you all in the next video.